you can find yourself in a situation that is, and there's so many different challenges that we can face in life, whether, loss of loved ones, health problems, financial problems, just our attitudes with other people and people that we're dealing with day in and day out. And when you have those times, you go through those times, it's easy to hear and I'm not really big on cliches. I will be careful, and everybody hear me out. Let me finish this sentence, okay? One of my biggest pet peeve things to hear people say is when something bad happens, to say, well, it's all part of God's plan. It's not that I don't believe that God has a plan. I'm just saying I think a lot of times we give, just because God's going to be able to do something good out of something bad doesn't mean that he intended for somebody to do that bad thing. Right. He just was aware of it. He works all things together for good. What you meant for evil, he meant for good, those kinds of things. Right. And that somebody could even be yourself. So I'm not trying to point fingers at anything in particular. It can easily be yourself and your sin that you work something good out of.
Sometimes we're our own worst enemies.
But there are multiple ways that God can use those hardships, and I think there are sometimes we talked about. I've gone back and listened to some of the original episodes. In the very first episode, we talked about discipline, and God disciplines his children.
Right.
God can put you in a hard place to discipline you, and that's a part of your sanctification. He can put you in a bad place to bless you or to bless others. It could be something that to get to where he wants you to be, you're gonna have to go through a challenge, or maybe your challenge brings someone else to Christ, or it encourages someone else. I know we've talked about examples from
Lazarus
before.
Passing would be a great example of that. I mean, gosh, just go and heal the man, Jesus.
Yep.
Well, no, this is for God's glory, and he's going to raise the dead. A whole lot more of a miracle than just making a man that was sick well. That's impressive.
And I think that another thing that I kind of thought about a little bit this week, and especially from the sermon, and is he can also, when you say if you don't humble yourself, he'll humble you for you. That's not going to be fun or comfortable, but it doesn't necessarily have to be discipline either. It can also just be a part of that sanctification process. And so I think in one of my notes here, punishment is a part of sanctification, but it's not the only part of sanctification. Yeah. Discipline is not the only part of your sanctification. Sometimes there's just going to be times that, okay, football teams having to run laps, that's punishment. Right. Football teams doing their regular conditioning, that's part of just the conditioning.
At the end.
Right, that's just a part of that growth. So, and then I even have it almost as like a side note. Sometimes you can be in a difficult place just as a test of your faith. And I don't think that, I was thinking, why would God test your faith? He already knows if you're going to pass or not. It's not for his benefit, it's for you. It's for your benefit of knowing that you can.
And to watch how he comes through.
Yeah. Yep. So I guess from listing those out, which ones would you add to it? And then also, how do you discern or try to get to the bottom of, because the answer is it can be all of the above and more. I mean, there's a lot of things. You don't box God into any 3, 4, 5 bullet points or anything like that. There's all kinds of things. But I was just trying to figure out a way to take this.
You go ahead. And I'll support you.
I want to hear this one. What you thinking? I'm gonna come behind you. I promise. I'll help you.
You're gonna protect me.
He got you back in.
Okay.
If he don't, I've got an edit button.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
So when you were saying that, my mind wandered to something that King Saul, God's plan was for King Saul to be king forever. He says that.
Yeah,
it was right. It's right there. David was not his first choice. I've always heard that that was the people's choice, but David was really God's choice. But that wasn't true, because he told Saul, that if you would have obeyed me, I would have kept your
dynasty, your line would have been. He did the same thing to Jeroboam, the first king of the north. Is I'll keep your line on the throne. But
then David, look how because of Saul's falling, David got in, and God's plan went actually worked out. Yeah. God takes failure and makes something beautiful out of it. Is what I guess is what I'm trying to say.
You can definitely say that from time to time, as he does do that. Yeah. I think one of the other things is, and I think kind of we're almost bookended it, if you will. We started out with, when we did our introduction, talking about the word genuine. Mm-hmm. Peter says that these fiery trials that we go through, they may be God's discipline. They may be an external force that at that time the church was being attacked for being Christians, but they were facing all kinds of fiery trials. He said, but this has come so that by the working out of your faith, you may prove to be genuine. And I think it goes back to that word genuine. That's what God really wants to work out in us. And so sometimes those difficult trials, those times that we're not sure which way to go, those times that we're tested, it's not that God wants to say, let's have some fun with these guys today, like I was a kid with ants. No, it is. He is wanting to make in us a genuine faith. And so sometimes he has to get rid of the dross, the junk that's in our life. Yeah. Some of it is pride. Some of it may be envy. Some of it may be, you fill in the blank there of what, but God wants to get rid of that stuff because that is of the old nature. And he wants us to walk in the new nature, the new creation that we've become.
And that's where I said it's not always necessarily discipline. I mean, I feel like...
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be.
So for me, like, some things that I'm dealing with are helping, they're going to humble me. Like, you're going to have a choice but to be humble. But at the same time, if God's working on getting rid of an area of a sinful area of your life, right? We like to think of that, well, he's punishing me for my sin. Yes and no. He's not going to punish you for every single sin that you commit. If so, you'd be in a really world of hurt, right? I mean, that's not what we're talking about here. But he does want to start to work on and improve that sinful nature. And if you started here and you're here, he still wants to get you to here. Mm-hmm. So the work that you have to do to get from here to here isn't for punishment for only being here when he wants you there. Mm-hmm. It's because he's not done working yet. Right. You know, one of the things that I'd said early on that first show was that when God disciplines us, we get angry with God, and and he's not punishing you as much as he's working on you. Well, even if it's not punishment, he's still working on you, and that work is going to be work. I mean, it's going to be work for you from your standpoint.
And I think too, and maybe what we need to do too is think about that word discipline. We think discipline. The first thing I hear, now this is no joke. When I hear discipline, I see my dad. About to tan my backside for something I said, something I did, and I deserved it. And I never got a whipping I didn't deserve, and I'm glad he did. But discipline isn't always about, okay, now I'm gonna bring the belt out, or I'm gonna spank you. Discipline is also not just correcting bad behavior, but steering towards good behavior. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes that discipline of the Lord can be, he's trying to steer you towards, okay, I'm going to put you in this situation so that, hey, you're going to find out all these lessons you've been studying or the verses you've been memorizing. Here's a chance to put it into, and he's steering you towards good behavior too. I mean, that's part of good parenting is, you got to know when to crack whip. Again, that's a saying. Don't call child services on me. I'm out of the child raising age anyway. But you got to know when to crack whip. But you also got to know when to say, all right, let this boy cook. I'll say that to Renee or something is, all right, let's just see the decisions he's going to make, because we've instilled in him the stuff that he should have to make a valued decision and make a smart decision. And before we let him get too far down the road, we'll correct him. But let's just see if he can, if he's going to go that way. And most of the time they have. That's part of what God does sometimes in these tests, these trials, these hard times, is, all right, you're going to put into practice what you've been learning. Because if you just learned it, so what? I mean, that's the other 167. If you get something out of the lesson or you're learning something from the Bible, if you're not putting it into practice, that doesn't do a thing. You just memorize some verses. That's nice, but if you're not living it, it's got to come out, I guess is what. And sometimes those hard times is where you prove your faith is real.